Hello, everyone. I'm Tom Coffey, president of the Louisville Forum. Welcome to our August 2024 program. The Louisville Forum typically meet at noon on the second Wednesday of each month here at Vincenzo's Restaurant downtown. All are welcome. It was founded in 1984, as we've seen a couple of programs ago. It was about 40 years ago. The Louisville Forum is a nonpartisan public issues group. We host debates and discussions of contemporary and sometimes controversial public policy issues that affect the greater Louisville community. For more information on the Louisville Forum, our events, to join or to make a reservation, please visit louisvilleforum.org. Today's program, you guys all saw, where is the next Humana coming from? Humana, as you guys know, the headquarters is right around the corner here. I mean, this building actually abuts right up to it. It's Louisville's largest company by revenue. In 2023, it was the only Fortune 500 company in Louisville and was, in fact, a Fortune 100 company, ranking as the 42nd largest in the nation. As I've mentioned before, the single topic that is constantly at the front of our members' interest is the state of our downtown. A June article in the Courier-Journal stated the following. A new study by the University of Louisville College of Business found Humana's direct employment supports tens of thousands of other jobs across the Commonwealth. Community investments surpass $50 million annually. And financially, the company adds roughly $14 billion to the state in economic output. News about Humana moving out of its iconic building right next door was alarming. When Rebecca Fleischhacker spoke at our June event, she was compelled to rightly point out that this did not mean Humana was pulling out of downtown altogether. The bottom line is we all know Humana's importance to Louisville. And wouldn't it be great if Louisville had more of them? That is what today's luncheon is about. Our topic is basically, to use a college basketball analogy, what kind of recruits do we have coming in? Is another Humana, another entrepreneur, another star budding? We have two speakers who will address the state of entrepreneurship in Louisville. Seated to my right, Larry Horn, and next, Jackson Andrews. Larry Horn is the CEO of Amplify Louisville. Amplify is a state-funded entrepreneurial support organization for the greater Louisville area by Kentucky Innovation. It serves tech-enabled, venture-backable startups, agnostic to industry from ideation to their first growth stage round. It does this with one-to-one founder coaching, access to resources, events and programs, and overall community navigation. Previously, Larry was the director of startup ecosystem development for Louisville through Techstars. Larry has an MBA from the University of Louisville and co-founded...
Go Cards. Sorry.
Go, yeah, sure.
Go Cards.
Okay. This is Louisville Forum, that's fine.
Yep.
From the University of Louisville and co-founded 4 early-stage venture backed startups. Larry also serves on the University of Louisville Alumni Association, Volunteers of America, Mid-States, Actors Theater of Louisville, Metro United Way, and the University of Louisville College of Business Advisory Boards. He loves bacon, startups, and several loser sports teams.
Go Cubs.
Larry lives in Louisville with his wife, Emma, kidpreneurs, Miles and Ava, and their pepperoni buttercup. Welcome, Larry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Jackson Andrews. Jackson Andrews co-founded and launched one of the earliest U.S. Endeavor offices back in 2014 and 15. He currently serves as the managing director on the board of directors. Founded in 1997, Endeavor supports high-growth entrepreneurs in overlooked markets. Now operating in 43 countries and 8 U.S. markets, in 2022, Endeavor entrepreneur-led companies generate over $40 billion in revenue and employ over 4 million people around the world. Prior to Endeavor, Jackson served as managing director and partner at Spouting Rock Capital. He has served on the Client Solutions Advisory Council for Legg Mason Asset Management and holds the Chartered Alternative Investment Analyst designation. In 2014, he was named to the Milken Institute's Global Young Leaders Circle. He is a graduate of Centre College and alumnus of Harvard Business School. He and his wife Liz are active in the community and have 2 children, Jack and Catherine. Welcome, Jackson. Thank you. And Larry, if you would, please.
Okay, thank you. All right, can I take this off?
Sure.
We break rules anyways. And of course, Jackson reminded me that I came in with a sport coat on. And as I represent entrepreneurs, I shouldn't have worn that. So sorry. Sorry not to come in and roll. No, it's such a pleasure to be here. First I want to thank Mike Norman for inviting us, and he provides such a beautiful space for us to host our monthly Venture Connectors meeting. So thank you, Mike, for this opportunity to talk in front of the crowd. As Tom mentioned, I stole some of my thunder. I forgot about some of those. No, Amplify, to Tom's point, so we're the state-funded organization. But to get to it, really what our job is we break it down in kind of three major categories. Mostly we're air traffic controllers to the resources that exist kind of in our community, both locally, regionally, and nationally. We do business coaching, and then we are therapists. Because if you started a business, no matter what it is, you know how hard and lonely it can be. So I spend a lot of time buying bourbon, maybe coffee, mostly bourbon, for founders that are really stressed out. We work in, our service area covers about 13 counties, primarily Louisville, during our new contract with the state, which runs every 4 years. We picked up, if anyone's familiar with the area development districts, we picked up the Lincoln Trail area development, which includes Elizabethtown, Bardstown, Fort Knox. So a lot of wonderful opportunities to generate more entrepreneurial activity in those areas. And just to give I know this was only 3 minutes, so you guys got to keep me from talking. Just give you a sense of some of the work that Amplify did over the last 4 years. We had 5,800 meetings with startups. We made over 2,000 connections to capital, talent, customers, or mentors. We've created thousands of jobs. We hosted or sponsored over 100 events, which had over 6,000 attendees. And though we didn't have a large touch in all of this, what I went back and looked is over the last 4 years, the companies that we have touched or talked to, 294 deals were done, not all unique, but that was $824 million worth of investment into companies here in Louisville. And so one of the things I talk about when we talk about the title of this talk was, Jackson and I often say, and he will be able to talk about this in more depth, the next Humana is actually already here. They work in Nulu. They're in an office in the East End. They just don't look like big towers of buildings now, but they employ hundreds of people, and they're really looking for their community to lean in and support them as much as they can. So again, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'll hand it over to Jackson.
All right.
Thank you, Larry.
Thanks, Larry. So real quick to just frame up Endeavor globally, and then we'll get to Endeavor here as it exists. So Endeavor was founded in 1997 by Peter Kellner and Linda Rutenberg with a really simple thesis, right? That they're great entrepreneurs and great companies everywhere. But oftentimes in these overlooked markets, those entrepreneurs lack the resources, the access points to, broadly speaking, talent, markets, and capital that are afforded to someone that happens to be located in Austin, Boston, New York, Silicon Valley. So what happens if you go into these overlooked markets and you open up these access points, providing these high growth, high achieving entrepreneurs that same access so that they do have the talent, the markets, and capital to truly scale and drive hundreds, if not thousands, of net new jobs, the wealth creation, the job creation, and the reinvestment, which is one of the most important, if not the most critical point. We often say scale up, go big, give back. And that then drives a virtuous cycle in these markets. And it creates this network effect no matter where you are. And to provide an example, launching in '97 in Buenos Aires and Santiago, Chile. So if companies can scale in those markets, they can certainly scale here. The entrepreneurs that we support last year generated over 2,000 jobs, about $400 million in revenue. And over the course of our work with these breakout companies, they've raised over $1 billion. So the next Humana is here right now. It's in our portfolio, it's in Larry's portfolio, and hopefully there are more. Now, going back to Humana, if you think about our largest companies here, by and large, they were all founded by entrepreneurs from here. Homegrown companies are the best path for economic development.
So we'll sit on that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Jackson, maybe you could say who helped you get Endeavor started here in Louisville?
Well, a gentleman named Mr. Jones, David Jones Sr., was our founding chair, along with other entrepreneur business leaders, Kent Taylor, Matt Thornton, and a number of other great individuals were part of our founding board and continue to be on our board.
I always love, because I think the story he told me was that he knew we needed to reinvest in the companies that we're building here. It could not be Humana forever.
Yeah, he knew.
Sorry.
Sorry,
Tom.
He knew that Humana is wonderful, but he wanted the next Humana. As much as he loved Humana, he wanted 10 more Humanas.
Right.
So you have to reinvest, right? You have to keep reinvesting in the future.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Larry, did you have any other questions for Jackson?
I'm just getting started.
No. Ron and Lawrence, any questions from the audience?
They're coming. I have one to start with. You said the next Humana is already here, but in the current way that business is being done, will it look like Humana with a big downtown office building and thousands of employees downtown? What will it look like, and what will the difference be as far as the impact on our state's economy?
Do you want to start? Or?
No, I think that's a layup for Endeavor.
You know, by and large, believe it or not, the companies we support are software and technology-driven businesses. And that's not a Louisville thing. That's just the state of the world. So, yeah, you know, businesses can scale more efficiently, I'd say, from a per capita employment. But what's great and unique, and it's part of the mayor's agenda, right, is high-quality job creation, tech creation that attracts, you know, a younger demographic. And so a fast-growing software company is going to employ hundreds, maybe thousands at some point, but hundreds of people. But they're going to be very well-paying, high-paying jobs. I mean, average salaries in the six figures kind of starting. So these are really attractive jobs for, you know, call it that 25 to 35 demographic that you want to attract. So if you have 50 or hundreds of those companies, that's your density, right? So will it be one company that employs 15,000 people? Maybe, right? But it could be more efficient, and that's okay because it's high quality, high paying jobs.
There's also, through a lot of ecosystem kind of research, there is the innovation multiplier. So for every one job that ClimaVision is going to create, that's a $150,000 a year salary, that creates 3 other jobs in our community. Now,
And by the way, ClimaVision raised $100 million in Series A funding from TPG's Rise Fund that's headquartered out of San Francisco, London, and Texas. So again, the notion that it can't be done here is foolish. It can't.
Yeah, what is TPG?
TPG is a global private equity firm with, I mean, multiple billions of dollars under management. And the founder actually joked with me that during due diligence, I said, "Did they ask you about being headquartered in Louisville?" And he's like, "No, it wasn't even a thing. They didn't say you have to move. It wasn't even on their checklist." And they do a lot of due diligence. So
Yeah.
again, you can build big companies here, you can raise capital from the outside here. What we need more of is local capital, but that's another topic.
Marty can't do it all. Tell them a little bit about ClimaVision.
So ClimaVision is a radar as a service technology business. So they build extremely high-tech radars. So that's the hardware piece. And they marry that with, of course, AI, artificial intelligence software, to mine the data that they get from these radars to provide their clients, like the US government, hedge funds, agriculture companies, and the like, to be better prepared for extreme weather events.
It's funny, I had drinks with the founder and his wife, who's actually also one of the founders, not too long ago, and we nerded out over weather patterns and how that's affecting the maturation of bourbon. and how you can see those trends happening. You can see the trends happening for the last few decades. And so just an example.
double-click on that.
Right. And then, but here's the thing in that same conversation is they are struggling having a conversation with our governor. And this is the largest round, single round, maybe? No, I would say Talaris is a 150, but I think one of the largest single rounds we've had in our state and still has trouble getting into the front door of some of our political leaders across the state.
You guys talked about climate. Let's get down to basics. What does the community require to create a climate that attracts entrepreneur activity? What is necessary, and does Louisville have that climate, or is it developing that climate?
Oh, boy. So you only want to ask one question today? No. Interestingly enough, I was in a meeting yesterday with the city, and the conversation we had around was, what is the risk appetite in our community? And I didn't really have to say a word. It was pretty obvious early on that we know we do not take a lot of risks as a community. So the climate for investing in our community, and you know, Jackson can speak more to this than I can. The climate is just, it's a challenge for us to get funding for companies that are moving beyond just their kind of minimal viable product and really trying to get into the markets. This kind of go-to-market strategy that also we have not a great connectivity between the corporate community and the startup community, which we do see in our peer cities around us. If you think about P&G in Cincinnati, HCA in Nashville, Bank of America in Charlotte, all those are very, very active in their startup communities, and we don't have that connectivity as of yet. We will. And so the climate is, Jackson will say this, and he has these great talking points I love. Can we build it here? Absolutely. Do we make it harder than it needs to be? 100%. Even if you think about from some of the policies we have as a state, compared to just our neighboring states to the north, both Ohio and Indiana, it is hard to tell a founder not to go to Indiana to start their business. They have plenty more money. Their policies are much more forgiving and or kind of founder friendly. And so we have a lot that we could do to change that climate going forward. You'd add anything to that? I mean, I could talk about this for like 30 minutes alone, but.
Yeah, the talents here and the density of early stage companies and particularly tech-driven entrepreneurs and companies is absolutely growing compared to where we were 10 years ago when we initially launched the Endeavor office. There was definitely, we didn't go in blindly. We did a lot of research, so we knew that there was enough here. Now, fast forwarding, the heartening thing is the level of activity continues to build in terms of the quality of entrepreneur and the quality of company that we see. And Endeavor is intentionally quite exclusive. I mean, we can't serve the many. We go narrow and deep with kind of a choice portfolio of companies. And globally, Endeavor's selection rate is 2.5%. So this is not, just a regional, national, or even national network. This is a global network that's really hard to get into. And we have, a cohort, a portfolio of companies here that have, passed not a Louisville bar or a regional bar or a national bar. They've passed a global bar. So these are really impressive companies, not Louisville impressive. They're just impressive globally, period. Right? So these are real deal companies. But we don't write the checks here, right? We don't write the checks here. And that's from a venture capital standpoint, but also, reinvesting in the programs that are going to foster an environment for entrepreneurs. And it's great that we talk about it. I absolutely applaud the mayor and Pat for putting venture capital and quality job creation through entrepreneurship on their economic development agenda. On their 4-point plan, it's 2 of them. So that's fantastic that we're talking about it. Now we need to write the check.
Actually, yes, and write the check. But just to add to that, in 2019, we had 2 different consulting groups come into the city and do an analysis on the startup community. First was Techstars, who I did work for, and the second was Techconomy, which was more through GLI, but they did a startup pillar. And they came all the way, in Techstars, they have a 5 stages of the maturity of an ecosystem. We were somewhere at the top of number 1, so to give you a sense of climate. But they both came away with 2 kind of resounding things that were common and what they would love to see us change. And one is silos of activity. And the other one is what I lovingly refer to as the bless your heart problem. We're real nice, right? So instead of an investor telling, other than Marty's very honest and straight with his founders.
Brutal,
I only
Marty.
cried once, Marty. But is, instead of telling someone that you'd love to see them in 6 months, they do X, Y, Z, just tell them you don't want to invest in them. And tell them to go meet your friend Jackson down the street. He's got plenty of money. But just to kind of share that kind of to the point of where we are as a community from a climate and startup standpoint. Okay.
Thanks, Ron.
Sorry, Tom, I
Oh,
keep
yeah,
talking,
no,
man.
please.
No, that was great. Thank you. And got a couple of questions that sort of are in the same sort of direction. One of which is in regards to risk appetite. We're sort of living through this era of unbelievable change. Digitization, data collection, what some might call the 4th industrial revolution, which has high risk but potentially high reward. So I guess specifically in terms of Endeavor or Amplify, how do we assess and what sort of companies are we looking at? What is too risky and what's the risk worth taking for a competitive advantage over other cities?
I'll take that little bit of a stab at that. As you say that, I kind of smile because I got in a deep conversation with one of my kids' teachers because they wouldn't allow AI in the classroom. And so I also asked him, do you have the internet in the classroom? He was like, yeah. I was like, all right, well, there's a time where everyone's like, don't invest in companies that are doing this weird internet thing. It's just a fad. So I think there's all inherently to what we do as founders and startups, there is risk, which is why there is the reward, there is the equity that you get in a company. So I think that we have talked a lot. One of the challenges we have as an ecosystem is we haven't had a lot of exited founders that are in that tech space that are in this room to be able to talk to their table about what that looks like, about their experience as a tech founder, their experience investing in a company not in Louisville that's in the tech space. When I travel around to other cities, this is a more common thing that happens because you're like, there's Jackson, there's Marty. Marty always talks, Marty exited for XYZ, and he's the one that brought us all along that AI can be scary, but so was the internet 30 years ago.
So the largest IPO recently in town, Waystar, which started as Zirmed, right, was a venture-backed company. Humana was initially a venture-backed company. Apellis Pharmaceutical is a venture-backed company that's gone on to IPO. So there's a clear pattern of development where the biggest wins, the biggest outcomes traditionally come from venture-backed companies. So you could say the most risky thing would be to not make any venture investments because you are not going to have those outsized outcomes. And that's what you want. Venture is risky, right? It is fairly binary. There's certainly middle cases where the company doesn't end up at an IPO, but the biggest risk is not putting venture capital to work because it drives those outsized returns. And that may be an IPO, but then you look at other exits. Our portfolio company, SKUVault, right, which had 3 investors in its Series A, Poplar Ventures, which is here in town, so that's fantastic. Ballast Point out of Tampa, Florida, and us, Endeavor Catalyst, our global fund, were the 3 kind of co-investors. That was an extremely successful exit. I can't disclose the size of the number, but it was a 5x return over the course of 3 to 4 years. So that's an incredible outcome for the entrepreneur, for the company, and for the investors. So yeah, venture capital is risky, but the biggest risk is not writing the check.
And to add to that, as you were talking about that, I was thinking about RX Lightning.
RX Lightning.
Julia Reagan raised $23 million in about 18 months, probably the fastest anyone's done it, especially for a female founder. She had 2 people invest in her first round. And when her second round came along, now everyone was very interested in investing. She said no. She's like, I'm going to go with the people that invest in me, which was institutional dollars outside of the state. So at some point, going back to what I was saying before, when you have people from even the city and the government's offices talking about how risk averse we are, I think we have other, what am I going to say, like things we have to accomplish first, other gateways to get through before we even worry about tech. Unless someone wants to get a racehorse or some real estate, then we're good.
What was the company you mentioned there, Larry? What was the?
RX Lightning?
What is that?
I'm not that smart, Tom.
Okay.
And so, he's going to be able to talk about it.
Yeah, so they're also part of Endeavor. So they're a software company serving the specialty pharmaceutical industry, headquartered right over in New Albany in southern Indiana, but
Which goes
still
back
here
to
in-
my Indiana comment earlier. That's why.
Yes, she received an exceptionally impressive package from the state of Indiana that made it foolish to not locate there as opposed to this side. But
Like Jackson, what did she? What do you get? What did Indiana give her?
so her job creation package is they have programs that are built around the tech economy, where ours at the state level are predominantly geared toward kind of large manufacturing facilities, which is fantastic, right? That's great to have. But instead of having a yes and, where you do have job creation incentives for a tech company that is not going to create 1,000 jobs day zero, but they're going to create 50 jobs that are very high paying. Indiana has a really good package for that type of company. So she received millions of dollars in incentives, and we don't have anything to match. That's not a city thing. That's just state.
And their state fund through Elevate Ventures just has more dollars than we do as a state, which allows them to invest in like 3 different stages of that company. So she received more investment, both as incentives for her business, but then also investment from their state funds.
Okay, thank you, Lawrence. Please, thank you.
You have some gentlemen here from Du Bois Academy. Talk to them about what they need to be doing now if they have visions of launching the next Humana here in Louisville.
Start.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, with AI, you can build 4 companies before you leave here today. Like I can build a company in a weekend now with AI. It is that simple to throw up a website, be a way where I can take a credit card and sell some sort of service. So most of them are not going to be anything. I'll probably lose money on most of them, but iterate, continually just start. Network with everyone that you can possibly get your hands and eyes on, and then have them help you network. But yeah, to Jackson's point, just start, just do it. It's never been easier to start a business that can create revenue than it is right now. Let's create, that would be a fun Louisville Forum adventure, Tom. Let's create a company before we leave. Marty's got all the money to fund it, so we'll go from there.
So this group of students over here, they have a brilliant idea for a business. They know technology better than any of us in this room. They're young and they're hip to it. And they're ready to get started.
Love it.
Why Louisville? What are the advantages of setting up in Louisville? And what resources could they obtain here in Louisville versus somewhere else?
So essentially that is the work that Amplify does on a daily basis. So the Why Louisville piece is a lot of stuff that we actually know. Getting access to resources, though I think we do a really good job of this, this is not an uncommon thing. To Jackson's point, you can start a business here. You can get to 80% of the country from here. You can travel. It's much easier to travel to where money is now and then come back. And then I think what we do have, though I did talk about that, we're real nice. We're real nice. You can get, I joke, I'm giving Marty a ton of grief, but Marty would probably take a cup of coffee with all of you. Hope you will. Sorry, I already put you on the spot. So I think the white
Signed him up for like 100 copies.
Hey, he likes to be caffeinated. And so I would say the white level piece is there is those intangible pieces that we have as a community where you walk down the street, you get to know a lot of people. You know, I was on a board of Enterprise Corps a dozen years ago. We were talking about, you know, we need an innovation district. There's no one area where startups were. And the story really came from, at least how I heard the story was Warby Parker came to Louisville looking for an East Coast headquarters. And they got the song and dance from the city. They probably got a gazillion dollars in tax incentives. But then they were like, well, we like to hire a lot of really innovative people. Take us to where the startups are. And they took them to a very cavernous room with about 7 software developers and says, here we are. Because there was no density. And so we've been super intentional about, especially on the tech side, of having those companies be based in Nulu. So anybody here go to Quills on Main Street? You see a gazillion people, you bump into them, you bump into Marty, you can bump into the mayor, you can bump into Jennifer Hancock if you're lucky, other founders. And there's been a lot of times we'll just stand there and we'll have this amazing conversation. This happened just yesterday where one founder was talking about their fundraising issues. The other founder's like, oh, I know someone perfect for you to meet, and connected them later that day. Those are the unintentional collisions that we have in Louisville now, and we are continuing to get better at and build that density that we didn't have 10 years ago when the Endeavors weren't here yet.
Yeah. Again, going back to, we've discussed, the point of investing in ourselves is a good bet, right? And so that's an opportunity, right? That's an opportunity gap for us to invest in ourselves alongside outside investors. The good news, right, is that the density here does continue to grow, right? Atlanta has what's called the Atlanta Tech Village. We don't officially have that, but Nulu as a region is kind of becoming that kind of tech entrepreneur hub. It hasn't manifested into one physical building yet. I think that's only like a short way away until everyone just kind of joins physically in the same building. But that density is absolutely growing. The connectivity and the doors that the entrepreneur and venture community that is here and growing will say yes. They will take a coffee. If we sit down with an entrepreneur and I go, you should really talk to Stacey Griggs at El Toro, he's going to say, great, I'll take that meeting. If I say, hey, Julia Reagan from RX Lightning, will you meet with this entrepreneur? It seems like they're trying to build something in the healthcare space. She's going to say yes. Chris Good at Climavision, he's going to say yes. So the doors are open, right? For the community that continues to grow here, the doors are open. And then to the capital piece, right? It is, probably wise to have a two-way capital strategy where we attract outside capital and inside capital, meaning local capital. But that being said, there's a great blog post by an acclaimed and highly successful venture capitalist, Fred Wilson, at Union Square Ventures, and he calls it the rise of everywhere. And the rise of everywhere essentially marks out that the barriers to accessing capital are kind of eroding in terms of you have to be on Sand Hill Road in California, or you have to be in New York, or you have to go be in Boston. So attracting that outside capital, those barriers geographically are eroding. And so entrepreneurs here, and we've already talked about a number of them, again, the companies we support have raised over $1 billion. Now, 99.9% of that, maybe 99% of that, is from outside. So that's the fantastic piece, is companies are raising real dollars right here. The opportunity is for us to participate alongside these outside investors so that when there is a successful exit or an IPO, that money gets recycled and reinvested here as opposed to going back to the coast.
And one thing I'll add that's not always popular is maybe it's not here. Maybe you need to go where your customers are. Maybe you need to go where your biggest funders will be. I think I've heard lots of stories in our community when that founder that moves to Boston because they have a company that is in the life sciences space, that we kind of throw rocks at them for leaving. Where I'm like, here's the 45 people I know in Boston, and you can stay at my aunt's house. And how do we cultivate and steward those relationships with these people traveling and building their businesses wherever they can, hopefully investing in them when they were early, and then be able to ask them to come back and invest in our community because we supported them along their way. I think that's an opportunity for us also that we overlook. It's kind of like the brain drain thing we always talk about. Our brain drain problem isn't our kids leaving Louisville, it's kids from Columbus not coming to Louisville. And so I think there's a lot to be learned from moving to other ecosystems as well.
Go from brain drain to brain gain?
Brain gain. I love it. There we go. The brain gain. All right, business. Are you guys can have that one for free. Brain gain.
There was actually a follow-up question regarding travel and access. Does our limited airline nonstop service at SDF pose a limiting factor for major growth?
All right, I'm going to take a counter to that. I think our airport's fantastic, and this is coming from, because of Endeavor being a global organization. I've put in a lot of miles, and I find it particularly easy to get anywhere that I need to be. Right, there are directs to most of the kind of major hubs on the East Coast, in particular Boston now, which that's nice. Thank you for that, SDF. But they're directs to Boston, New York, Chicago. So the kind of the money hubs on the East Coast are pretty easy, right? And if you're going to San Francisco, sure, there's not a direct right now, and that would be great, but look, you fly 45 minutes south to Atlanta and you go anywhere in the world you want to go. So, it's not that hard to get around. I get anywhere that I need to be anytime pretty easily. And frankly, Louisville's also easy to get in and out of. So
Until it's not. Until you miss your flight. Just saying.
Did you miss your flight?
Just once. Yeah, I mean to add.
So I don't think it's a question. I think it's easy. If you're an entrepreneur, that's not a barrier. Just buy the ticket. You'll be able to get there.
I was going to say, if anyone came to me and said, I'm having trouble raising money because I can't get to the coast, I would be like, well, you're not trying hard enough. Or get in your car. There's roads that lead there.
When you say write the check, do you mean the city government? How do other cities write the check?
I think setting the tone, right, is absolutely a role that the state and the city can take, and to a degree, as available based on the tax base. Yes, it's great to have kind of state and or city-sponsored investment vehicles, whether those are dollars that go into other funds, so a fund-of-fund structure, where they outsource the fiduciary duty of investing that money to other professional investment managers, and or have an in-house team that does direct investments. So in Indiana, that's Elevate Ventures that has somewhere between 300 and half a billion in dollars. So, other states around us, and Ohio as well, have, very large state-sponsored investment vehicles. So that is fantastic from setting this tone standpoint. But more importantly, what that also helps set a tone for is professional investors are signaling that, or being signaled that this is a capital-friendly market or area. And so inevitably, private professionals set up investment companies in those states because they know they have a partner there. And that is the real boon, right? That's the real important part is the entrepreneur and, the citizens are investing their dollars into these companies and these spaces. So of course, it's fantastic to have, the government entities making that signal. But more importantly, it sends a signal to the private sector that says, oh, okay, this is a capital-friendly place where I can set up a professional investment company and invest my dollars. And frankly, that's across venture capital, private equity, which is later stage investments in companies, and also real estate investments, because these companies need, a place to go as they're growing. So you want to encourage that capital formation from the private sector. The government can help signal that for sure.
Yeah, just to add, to give Pat Malloy a ton of credit on the work that he's trying to do right now with economic development, and we have had many conversations. If you look in Cincinnati, they have an organization called Cincy Tech, and their local government put some money in as an LP, but they provided a lot of tax incentives and a lot of tax credits to kind of get that fund off of the ground. And again, they also had major support from P&G and Kroger, et cetera. And so I think that what we're trying to do locally is, I know Pat and his team is really looking at this problem and how do we solve this kind of venture capital gap that we have in our community, and what is the appropriate role for government to be in that. As someone that has raised money from the government for a startup, it is very expensive money because the amount of compliance and amount of scrutiny that you have to go through to take those dollars. And so it should never be the bulk of your funding. But I think it's great when they can kind of give you that boost. It's an economic development fund. If you think about like Key Horse Capital, Commonwealth Seed Capital, that are state funded organizations. So.
As a follow-up, there are several related questions. Essentially, the questions are this. Of course, money is required. But what other areas of growth or services are we missing? In other words, what's Louisville lacking and needs to improve in order to attract and foster the next Humana?
So talent attraction or development or both?
Let's say both.
Okay. Great. Thanks. Yeah, part of it is actually bragging, right? It's not bragging if it's true. And we have to, at Endeavor, coach a number of our entrepreneurs on this very thing when they do start that process of pitching, which is selling, right? You need to be confident. You need to stick out you need to brag about what's true. It's not bragging if it's true. And I joke with some of the entrepreneurs, you can't all shucks it, right? Like, it's great that we're super nice. Not right now. Not when you're pitching, you're trying to get funded, you're trying to grow your business. It's time to be confident, put the all shucks aside and make the ask. We need to brag. We need to promote ourselves as a city and a region about all of the successes that are here. The number of case studies that at Endeavor alone, and then you add Amplify, or in the hundreds of different examples of SkuVault exiting, of RX Lightning raising $23 million from real deal institutional investors, Climavision raising $100 million. El Toro was the 13th fastest growing tech company in the United States at a period of time. 13th fastest growing tech company in the United States. Not Louisville, not parochial little Louisville, US, which makes them also one of the fastest growing tech companies in the world. So we need to tell our story. There are plenty of great stories, and we need to advocate and be our own best advocates so that people know about the things that are happening here. And there's, again, to the density point, to the amount of activity that is occurring. Handle, right? Kyle Green's company, they just raised $8.5 million from a firm in Texas. So Texas folks are going to make a lot of money. Good for them. These success stories are here, right? There is good news, and we need to brag. We need to tell our story and be proud of it.
Yeah, for sure. So I was almost mesmerized by your comments, so I forgot the question. Say it for me one more time. What is it? What were we doing again? No. What else do we need? I think when I travel and I talk about Louisville and what we have, I think the one thing people ask a lot about is pilot trials, potential customers, subject matter experts. who are those people, how available they are. And what I have found over the last 4 years of doing this work, I think a lot of folks, I always say there's a bunch of really smart people that are in these buildings downtown that aren't startup folks, but they might know everything about marketing, sales, you name it. I mean, some of my best mentors never started a startup. And so I think creating that more access to those corporations for those four pieces, I think is something that I hear quite often. On the talent retention, I have a counterpart in Tulsa. You think about the Tulsa Remote Program. I mean, they pay gig workers $10,000 to move to Tulsa for 1 year, and then they give them some office space and a co-working space, some other little wraparound services, just $10,000. And that has created $550 million worth of economic impact over the last 5 years. I pitched that to about everyone that would listen, and they're like, why would anybody want to move to Louisville? Okay,
This comes back to writing the check.
That's right.
You got to invest in yourself.
Yeah, and so I think that so I would say, again, there's lots of opportunities. I think it's how do we become a little bit more risk-taking? How do we also become more open to supporting startups? And by the way, I get it. Founders can be aggressive. Right. I remember when I was at a get together with a bunch of CEOs of large companies, and you would think founders just saw blood in the water. I mean, they were attacked. So I get it. Like, it's not always easy to open the doors, but, I've been trying to say if you are a $25 million company or higher, you should have someone a point of contact for innovation. What does that look like? Who are those people? So I think those are some opportunities for us as well.
Yeah, I'll say from an anecdotal kind of observation, having traveled all over the world with Endeavor and all over the U.S. for sure. Part of it is cultural, right? We're our own psychological worst enemy sometimes. We think we're second class. We think, we're just little old Louisville, when also statistically, like, we're a real city, folks. Like, it's a real city with lots of people. Like, there's plenty of stuff here. It's not a small town. It is a city. All right. And when I travel around, there isn't a negative perception of Louisville. There's no perception. There's just no perception. So
Bourbon and baseball bats.
Yeah, there is. It's also not people not from here think down on us. No, they don't. They're not even thinking about us. All right. So again, we gotta be proud and talk about ourselves and share our stories and share those successes. The good thing about not having a perception of us is, I will say, it's the upside surprise, right? If I go into a room and I'm in New York or San Francisco or London or wherever, because of that, I will say the flip is everything is, oh my gosh, Humana's headquartered in Louisville, Kentucky? Yep. Texas Roadhouse is headquartered in Louisville, Kentucky? Wait, but it's Texas Roadhouse. Why is it in Louisville, Kentucky? Well, that's where the founder was from. And then you go in climate, and this company raised $100 million. Wait, that company raised $100 million? Yeah, and this company did this, and this company did this. So the upside surprise is fantastic. In some regard, but it would be nice if a lot of these attributes were already known when you're walking into these rooms. So,
just to add real quick on celebrations, the Inc. 5000 list just came out this recently. Cornbread Hemp, which is a local company here, debuted at 122. And they couldn't get anyone to write them a check 3 years ago. I actually helped them with a crowdfunding platform to get their first check. And now I don't know if they disclose it, but their revenue they are, I think, 2,000% up year over year. So also here.
They're growing like crazy.
Yeah.
I find this fascinating, this part of the conversation. So whose job is it to do that marketing, to get that word out, to blow the city's horn? The city, is it individuals here? Is it GLI? Whose job?
I love GLI. They've been a great partner. They care about the investors that are going to move the needle for them, correct? Like they're going to care about large corporations that pay big dues and not as much to the smaller businesses. And so, I mean, we do this. I mean, we Amplify has a Celebrate the Wins. We post weekly about that to the point that some people didn't know who Amplify was because we celebrated our founders so much. And so I think that our organizations are kind of designed, I mean, less Endeavor, more ours since we're state funded to do that. But I think it comes down to the individuals in the room. It's why you're traveling. It's when you're on your trips. It's all those places that I know Jackson does. I know I do. And yes, sometimes I get people here to go on bourbon tours, but while they're here, I try to introduce them to founders as well. So I don't know if it's anyone's specific job. And I feel like I had this conversation with Cleo Battle around, you know, a lot of tech conferences wanting to potentially come to Louisville just hasn't hit anybody's radar yet. And so how do we promote ourselves, this amazing tech community that we do have? And I shared a, I don't know, 5-minute clip that Chuck Denny sent me from Charleston. That was this amazing video that was created about Charleston's tech community. Charleston has less people than we do. And I just think, so I would always say it's up to us. This is kind of the mindset I have. Like I don't really look at government to solve many problems because if I think about social enterprise in general, government, that's not usually government's role and that's not how they're designed. I think it's up to our community, it's up to our businesses, it's up to us individually to be the ones that make sure other people know that Louisville is a great place to live, work, play, right? But also build businesses.
Yeah, yes, Ann, it is everybody, but certainly the public sector, right, has the institutional heft and also the signaling power, the bully pulpit, if you will, to help amplify, if you will, our individual voices as citizens. So, yeah, the public sector can absolutely enhance and amplify the stories. Buy billboards across the entire United States. Why not? Just buy a bunch of billboards and start talking about Build in Lou, Entrepreneurship City, which one of our board members wants us to champion, Ron Trenier, who's built an incredible business, right? Homegrown entrepreneur built business right here in town, you know, amazing entrepreneur. So yeah, be bold. Entrepreneurship City, billboards across the United States, come to Lou. Yeah. Get on the megaphone and help us as citizens promote that message.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say a lot of you in here are on boards, you're a part of other organizations. You know, if you hear of one of our groups wanting to spend $500,000 on some sort of marketing campaign with no ROI, just mention that could also be 50 tech workers that come with their $150,000 salaries and get baked into our community for the same amount of money. So I think that would be it.
Well, Larry and Jackson, I know there are some additional questions, but we've just run out of time. Fascinating topic. Thank you both very much for being here. All right, everyone. We don't have our September topic in stone yet, but please keep an eye out and look forward to seeing you all then. Thank you again. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.